Welcome everyone. My name is Danae and I'm one of the Associate Directors of Destination Services here at the CVB. We're so excited to welcome you to our first episode of our new GPS reboot series called Art and Soul. Over the last few months, we've focused on health and wellness, and now we're highlighting another one of our brand pillars, arts and culture. In today's episode, we brought in some local experts on mid-century modernism, so it's going to be really fun. Before we get started, I would like to go over just a few housekeeping notes. Today's program is in webinar format, so it is being recorded and will be available afterward. Your camera and microphone have been muted and will remain so for the entire program. So if you have a question for one of our speakers, you could submit your question in the chat room and send it directly to Michelle Morgan. So there's a drop down in the chat and you'll find Michelle's name there, and just enter in your question, and then we'll do a brief Q&A after each guest. If we don't get to your question, we'll be sure to follow up after our program. For best viewing, you select speaker view, and then if you want to turn off any of your electronic notifications, like your phone or your email, so that you're not disrupted, that would be great. And then now I'll go ahead and kick things off and welcome President and CEO, Mr. Scott White.
Thank you, Danae, and hello everybody. Thank you for joining us. We truly appreciate your support through these difficult times, but we're excited to start our new virtual series. The arts and cultural community of our oasis is truly the heartbeat which defines our unique personality. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. It really is a unique experience here. The evolution of our destination wouldn't be complete without the artists and artistic events that call Greater Palm Springs home. And each year we hear about more artists and more events that are coming to our destination. They really find the opportunity is invigorating to be here with our wide open experiences and spaces and the unique opportunities that it prevails. And fortunately, it's going to be much easier for all of you to come visit us and experience it firsthand. This past Sunday, we welcomed the iconic airline Southwest. And I know I've been here now for 10 years. We've been courting Southwest for over 10 years, trying to get them to the destination. And who knew it would take a pandemic to make that become a reality? So they're going to start service, or they have started service to 3 key hub airports, Oakland, Phoenix, and Denver. And I can tell you the pre-bookings have been strong, and I think they're excited about the opportunity to grow Southwest into our destination. Those flights will be year-round, which is also very exciting. And at the same time, other airlines have also announced new service into the destination. Alaska is starting service to San Jose and Boise and Reno. JetBlue recently added seasonal service to Fort Lauderdale and Boston. American recently also added a weekly flight from Philadelphia. And if I look back a few years ago, we had a Saturday flight from Atlanta with Delta, and that was so successful that they now are flying 5 days a week. So we now have 28 nonstop cities, which can get you to over 500 destinations with one stop. We know that safety is a concern and on top of mind for all of us. So the Greater Palm Springs tourism industry is making the pledge to implement the latest safety guidelines developed by the state of California and all of our leading industry associations. While the safety of our visitors, staff, and local community have always been top priority, we recognize it's even more critical today. So we created this pledge, and we're offering this pledge and sharing the additional steps that our local businesses and tourism partners are now taking, so you can feel confident that our oasis remains healthy, positive, and inclusive for all. More than 450 local businesses have taken the pledge to keep Greater Palm Springs safer. We recently created a video highlighting our commitment to this incredible, important topic and the unique experience that our destination has to offer. So with that, I'm going to have us roll our safety video, please. Thank you, Danae. And I have to say the one key component for all of this is the CVB team. We've worked really hard to keep our team together through all of this, and we hope to have everybody back to full swing in the new year as a vaccine shows hope and promise for the future. But with that, I couldn't have survived all of this without our Chief Sales and Marketing Officer, Colleen Pace. She's been an amazing partner through all of this and has kept me sane, to say the least. So I'm going to turn over to Colleen. And of course, as in the true spirit of Zooms, I have to jump off to another Zoom call that is calling to me. So enjoy the art and soul of our destination. I look forward to watching the recorded version of that. Have a great day, everybody.
Great, thank you, Scott. And thank you everyone for joining us. We are so excited to be able to stay connected with all of you. We know we'd rather do this in person, but we created this series so that we can stay virtually connected and provide you with some inspiration on our destination. And today we're specifically talking about modernism, and I'm very excited. We have a little bit of a new format. If you've joined some of our other virtual events, we've been more presentation and questions at the end, and this time we want to keep it a little more interactive. So we're going to be doing an interview style format where we'll be asking our panelists some questions, and then of course we'll be asking any of the questions that you all have from the group. So with that, it is my pleasure to announce our first guest, Lisa Vossler Smith. She's the Executive Director of Modernism Week and is passionate about promoting cultural tourism and the rich heritage of the Greater Palm Springs Desert region. Lisa attended Indio High School and grew up in La Quinta, where she began her early career at La Quinta Resort under the leadership of her mother, Judy Vossler. After graduating from the University of California, Lisa pursued a career path in special event management, which eventually led her to employment at the Palm Springs Art Museum, where she most recently was the Senior Director of Administration and Operations. Lisa and her husband, Philip, are both from the Coachella Valley and are proud to have established their business and family life in the desert. So with that, I'd like to say hello and welcome to Lisa. And you might have to unmute yourself there, Lisa.
Okay, how's that?
That's great. Well,
Hi,
thank you
Colleen.
so much. Hi, thank you for joining us. We're very excited to have you. We know that you can talk about all things modernism. So wanted to just kick off with some questions. Modernism, specifically mid-century modernism, is part of our DNA in Greater Palm Springs, as Scott mentioned. Can you educate the group as to what the significance is and what the movement is for our area and our destination?
Sure. Well, again, thank you to the CVB for having me. I'm thrilled to be able to talk about modernism and Modernism Week in Palm Springs. You know, the desert is such a unique place. And if you consider the modernist period like we do, roughly from 1945 to the early 70s, late 60s is, you know, sort of the period that we're looking at. And because the desert was had, you know, wide open spaces and beautiful climate. And during the early part of modernism, it was about industrial materials and creating easy, inexpensive, prefabricated building materials that could increase the speed at which homes could be built. And if you think about that, the modernist design was a really unique, forward-thinking, futuristic, almost space-age design aspect, which didn't fit in to most established neighborhoods. And so what Palm Springs provided was a vast and beautiful desert of raw, undeveloped land. And, you know, of course, Hollywood money to help build new, beautiful homes, which helped in the 50s and 60s to establish our Palm Springs area. And so we really feel like the desert was a more open laboratory for new and experimental architecture in the 50s and 60s.
That's great. And from that, Modernism Week was created. So tell us a little bit about how that was all how that was founded and what the development of that was.
Well, many, many years later, after the mid-century period, you know, it's interesting in our desert communities, the modernist structures fell out of favor in the 80s. And many of us can remember when, you know, the older buildings that were at that time kind of considered, you know, our grandparents' generation, I guess. And so new architecture, new structures were built. The desert boomed in the 80s and 90s with development. And so a lot of these structures just kind of sat in a time capsule and were otherwise untouched. And so in the late 90s and early 2000s, as these properties started to be bought and restored and really brought back to their original architectural glory, a group of very interested and concerned, passionate architectural enthusiasts got together and basically started organizing activities and home tours and educational lectures about mid-century modern design and its relevance to desert modernism and how that evolved. And from that, 16 years ago, Modernism Week was born. And it's due in part to our friends who run the Modernism Show and Sale, which is at the Convention Center. They were established 5 years before us. So there was already a large audience coming to visit Palm Springs and to shop at the Modernism Show, and of course to look at our beautiful mid-century modern buildings. And with all of that energy and attention focused on the architecture, we were able to start a very, at the time, small grassroots event that celebrated this architectural heritage of Palm Springs.
That's wonderful. And tell us a little bit about what the growth has looked like over the past 16 years. You mentioned, obviously now it's a very popular event and attraction that people look forward to. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it has been really exponential growth, in particular over the last 10 years. But, you know, our first event was over a 3-day weekend, President's Day holiday in February, and that was in 2006, we were established in 2005, then the first event was held in 2006. And, you know, it had maybe about 1,500 people attending, and we were thrilled with the success of it. I was a volunteer at the time and working at Palm Springs Art Museum, who's one of the founding partners of Modernism Week. And so over the years, as we have been able to involve more local partner organizations to help us produce more home tours, more walking tours, more parties and lectures, we've been able to grow the event to keep up with the demand. And so I'm very proud to say that this last year, in February 2020, right before the world changed, we had a wonderful event and had 160,000 attendees.
That's amazing.
So it was our 15th anniversary celebration. It was our biggest year yet. I have goosebumps just thinking about it. It was by far one of the parties to end all parties. So we were thrilled to get to have so many friends come visit.
That's amazing. Congratulations on that success. And
Thank
tell us
you.
a little bit about what the format was kind of pre-COVID and how you see that evolving now in the current times.
Well, like everyone else, we're trying to evolve and stay current and keep our audience engaged, and certainly entice new visitors to come to Palm Springs when they can. So, you know, the event has always centered around the architecture of Palm Springs and the Greater Palm Springs area. So our events actually occur throughout the Coachella Valley, all the way from Indio and La Quinta, Desert Hot Springs, to Palm Desert, Rancho Mirage, Indian Wells, and the city of Palm Springs. So we have home tours in neighborhoods across the valley. And, you know, that's one of the things that even in this time of trying to respond to new activities, we're very hopeful that a lot of our outdoor programming and walking tours and garden tours and exterior home tours and things that we've always done so well, we hope to still be able to do. So if the pandemic situation is such that guests can come together and we can feel good about bringing people together, we certainly will, because we can control the timing, the capacity, the direction, you know, through the touring properties. So, you know, we think that we can provide a really wonderful, safe and quality experience, not only for our visitors, but for our staff and volunteers as well. So we're hoping that in addition to some live events, we will also have a full schedule of online events as well. So our plan is to do both simultaneously if possible. We would have an online festival with about 20 online programs available, as well as live events in person, we hope. Fingers
Well,
crossed.
that's wonderful. I mean, hybrid events are what we're hearing is kind of the new normal now. Not to overuse that term, but so it sounds like a great hybrid of live and digital. Do you expect, some of the benefits of that, I think, are that you can have a broader reach of your audience. So do you expect your demographics at all to change as a result?
Well, we're excited about that too. And I don't know that the demographics will change because we're already attracting visitors from more than 20 countries around the world. And so we saw in October when we hosted our first online events that we did still have representation from about 15 countries. So that's terrific. And what we'd like to really see as an outcome of our online programming is the ability to expand our global reach. We can cast a wider net. And with that, we're already seeing attendees from about age 35 to 75. So we have a pretty wide demographic in there. And the great news is it's the same people that are participating in person that are also watching online. So if anything, I'd like to see that online programming offers, the opportunity to bring Modernism Week to the people where they are in their own home or in their own home country, as well as attracting a younger audience who are certainly digital savvy and used to watching Zoom programs all the time. So, we really feel that the online option only enhances our ability to create Modernism Week programming that everyone can participate in.
That's great. And so for those that are listening right now, we have about 80 people on this call. How would they find out more information? Would they go to your website then to find out more?
Yes, please, because as things are changing every week, we're updating the website with new information. So as we are keeping a close eye on the county and what's happening, but we will be keeping our website updated and current. And at this point, we're hoping to go on sale January 1st, which would also occur on our website, modernismweek.com.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to ask Michelle if she has received any questions in the chat for Lisa before we move on.
Yes, absolutely. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Lisa.
Hi, Michelle.
So we have one question. What are your thoughts on attracting younger participants? Are local schools involved in any way
Great
in the
question.
program? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we love having students involved. And since our beginning, we have always had local students involved. And in part, that's because we also have a very robust scholarship program. Over the last 11 years, we've given away more than $200,000 in scholarship money to local high school students who are pursuing architecture and design in college. So many of those college students stay involved with us and they come back to help volunteer and participate in our programs. And, we would like to enhance even further the ability for students to be involved with the programs. College of the Desert has been very collaborative and supportive over the years, but I would say that's something that we're always open to. So if anyone has new ideas they'd like to discuss, please contact me.
That's
Great.
wonderful.
Thank you so much. We have another. Hi, Stacy Morgan. How are you? Thank you for your question. We have one customer interested in tours and pricing, which we'll absolutely get to you. And she did bring up buses and shuttles and transportation, so she would like to know more about that as well.
Well, I'm assuming that she's asking about our bus tours, maybe not
Mm-hmm.
public bus systems. And in Modernism Week, one of our most popular experiences is the double-decker bus tour because it offers a beautiful architectural tour around the city of Palm Springs. But this year, unfortunately, because of social distancing and safety procedures, we won't be offering the bus tours. And we're sad about that, but we'll be very anxious to bring them back as soon as we can. We just know that for the safety of the participants, we can't properly operate that tour at full capacity.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question we have, what are you most excited to experience and learn from in your 16th season?
Wow, we're learning so much already, almost on a daily basis. And we love hearing the feedback from our attendees. And so I think the thing I'm most excited to learn is what the full capability of online and live programming running simultaneously would be, because we're really looking at events that are similar in their in their goals or in how they're conceived, but they're articulated very differently. As you know, videos being pre-produced and directed, you know, to provide an entertaining and informational experience versus live events where, you know, there are, of course, people and experiences involved that we can't control. So it's going to be a very good challenge for my team. And I have to say thank you very much to our whole board of directors and team that have supported us and stuck with us through this very difficult time. We're all just trying to adapt and stay nimble.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you, Michelle.
Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it and all that you're doing to support arts and culture for our destination and modernism. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Colleen. You know, we love Greater Palm Springs and we'll always be here. So as soon as people can come back, Modernism Week will be ready for you.
Perfect. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. And I'm going to introduce our next guest. Kurt Sear is a designer and architectural aficionado. His love of Palm Springs and its architecture led him to create Palm Springs Mod Squad, an architecture and design tour company. Kurt guides daily architectural tours of Palm Springs, showcasing the desert modern architecture of his city. His tours include both interior and exterior tours, as well as the very popular Martini's and Mid-Century Modern Architecture Tour. This tour focuses on the Rat Pack side of Palm Springs and the city's connections to Las Vegas during that time period. The tour concludes with a martini while Kurt shares his extensive knowledge of gin and the history of the popular cocktail. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Kurt has reinvented the Mod Squad tours to allow for social distancing. The guests follow in the safety of their own car, and the tours are concluded live, in person, and via mobile phone. So now we're gonna turn it over to Kurt to do a fabulous presentation, and we'll all get some education here.
Thank you, Danae. It's great to be here. Welcome to Palm Springs, everyone. Sort of, I guess, virtually here. And we'll get there we go. So when we think about Palm Springs, we definitely think about mid-century design, and we can't help but think about the Rat Pack and, of course, martinis. What better way to enjoy Palm Springs than with a martini? Today, I'm going to explore the intersection between Palm Springs, Las Vegas, and, of course, the Rat Pack. Welcome to Palm Springs and the Rat Pack cocktail culture. This town was designed for three things: getting drunk, getting laid, playing golf, said Palm Springs restaurateur Billy Sorrentino. It was popular. The guys would chopper in from Vegas and just hang out. The guys Billy was referring to, of course, were the Rat Pack: Frank, Dean, Sammy, Peter, and Joey. As Billy put it, they drink, smoke, drink some more, sometimes even sing, and of course drink. Sorrentino's was originally the Dollhouse located on North Palm Canyon, and it was a boisterous night spot where the bar stools even had seat belts. Buckle up, modernistas. Here's an interesting little side bit that I just recently learned about the Dollhouse. Naomi Parker Fraley was a waitress there after the war. You may know her better as Rosie the Riveter. So no matter where you look here in Palm Springs, you'll find interesting characters whom loom large, just not in local, but national history. Now back to the Rat Pack. The Rat Pack, as we know them today, began in 1960 with the filming of Ocean's 11. They never called themselves the Rat Pack, though. It was the press who dubbed them that. They always referred to themselves as the Summit or the Clan. And this was a deference to the original Rat Pack. Originally, the group centered around Humphrey Bogart and his pals, Judy Garland, David Niven, Angie Dickinson, talent agent Swifty Lazar, restaurateur Mike Romanoff, and of course, Frank Sinatra. According to Stephen Bogart, Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall's son, the term originated when his mother walked in on his father and the rest of the group during a particularly drunken weekend in Las Vegas. "You look like a goddamn pack of rats," she said. The name stuck. They even assigned themselves titles. Sinatra was the pack master. Bacall was the den mother. Garland was vice president, and her husband, manager Sid Luft, was the cage master. Lazar was the treasurer and recording secretary, and Bogart was in charge of PR, though the role was more akin to a spiritual leader. This new Rat Pack were Hollywood bad boys, and in the post-World War II era, they added a luster, not just to the big screen, but to Palm Springs as well. Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and Peter Lawford so enjoyed visits to Palm Springs that they ended up purchasing homes here. Here's Dean Martin's home in Vista Las Palmas. It's still owned by Dean and Jean's daughter, Dina. The Sinatra compound, in particular, became a favored meeting site for the Rat Pack. With its piano-shaped swimming pool, it was a perfect spot for afternoons luxuriating in the desert sun. You may recognize it from the 1950 movie The Damned Don't Cry, starring Joan Crawford. Sinatra built Twin Palms in 1947, and it was in the middle of the desert. It was so far from the older established neighborhoods of the city that he would have to illuminate the Twin Palms towering in the yard so his cronies could find their way across the desert. He was also fond of hoisting up the Jack Daniels flag up the flagpole when he was serving cocktails, so everybody knew that the bar was open. Over the next 20 years, Frank fueled up, or should I say, worshipped at the altars of Biltmore, Howard's Manor, now Colony Palms, Don the Beachcomber. Here's Don the Beachcomber. They just restored the tiki torches, and they do function on special occasions. They light them up. Today it's Ernest Coffee and Bootlegger Tiki. There was also Romanoff at the Rocks, which he was a part owner with an entourage of celebrities, including Lauren Bacall and Beverly Hills restaurateur Mike Romanoff. And as you may recall, both were original members of the Rat Pack. Martin and Sinatra were more than just compadres, they were brothers. They found each other at a time when Hollywood was just oozing with glitz and glamour and clamored for larger-than-life personalities. Those two really fulfilled their roles. Frank and Dean were friends for more than 40 years, and the legendary performers made Los Angeles and Las Vegas and Palm Springs their stomping grounds and had second homes here in Palm Springs. Here is the Sinatra house today. The Martins and Sinatra spent a lot of time together privately, but also publicly, especially during the the holiday television season. Dean was not impressed with the mafia types, unlike Frank, who enjoyed swimming with the sharks. Sinatra was associated with Chicago mafia boss Sam Giancana. Though Dean appeared to be perennial drunk, that was just an act. Martin enjoyed a cocktail from time to time, but the ever-present tumbler of scotch was in reality Martinelli sparkling cider. Martin was also notorious for skipping rehearsals. The feigned inebriation only added to the onstage unscripted antics that were sure to soon follow. Sinatra met Davis at the Michigan Theater in Detroit in 1941. Sinatra was there performing with the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra, and Sammy Davis was just 16 years old and performing in the Will Maston Trio. Sinatra was blown away by Sammy's talent. Sammy had started his career as a vaudeville entertainer around the age of 3 with his father and his uncle in the Will Maston Trio. Sinatra and Davis wouldn't meet up again until 1945. World War II was over and Davis had just been released from the Army, and Sinatra was doing a radio show in Los Angeles. So Davis put on his uniform so he could get the serviceman's ticket and attended the show. A couple of years after their second meeting in 1947, Sinatra booked the Will Maston Trio as his opening act. Being friends with Sinatra and the Rat Pack wasn't just a social benefit for Davis. Sinatra stood up for Sammy, and he was his protector. Davis became a real part of the Palm Springs community. He owned a house in the old Las Palmas neighborhood across the street from Temple Isaiah. And more importantly, he was an avid golfer. He was a member of the Tamarisk Country Club. The club was formed because the restricted nature of the other country clubs excluded entertainers, those of the Jewish faith, and Davis was both. Founding members of Tamarisk Country Club included George Burns, Jack Benny, Danny Kaye, and 4 of the 5 Marx brothers. As a member of the Tamarisk Country Club, it provided an entree into the Hollywood and the whitewashed world of stardom that eluded many of the talented African-American entertainers during the mid-century. Sammy Davis Jr. owed much of his career to Frank Sinatra, despite being a more versatile performer. Sammy Davis Jr. was the type of performer who could take to the stage and go from tap dancing, singing, to playing the trumpet, to impressions. His passion was being the entertainer, making people happy, even if it was at his own expense. Shortly before Davis and Sinatra's reacquaintance in 1945, Sinatra had met Peter Lawford at a party for Henry Ford Jr., hosted by MGM mogul Louis B. Mayer. The British actor was more accomplished than many might realize. He was an MGM star in the 1940s, a suave television star in the Thin Man series in the 1950s, and surprisingly, an accomplished surfer. Sinatra craved the class and Lawford exuded it. Lawford gave the Rat Pack their handsome Englishman, but Peter was someone who Frank could pick on because he couldn't sing that well. There's little question, though, that Lawford's greatest asset was his brother-in-law, JFK. You see, Peter Lawford was married to Patricia Kennedy. Now, just down the block from Dean Martin's house is the Lawford Kennedy house. Now, JFK didn't hide the fact that he was hanging out with his brother-in-law and Sinatra at the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas. And it was actually Sinatra who introduced Kennedy to Marilyn Monroe. By late 1959 and early 60, Sinatra had been part of the showbiz movement to draft JFK for the presidential run. Sinatra loans his plane for the Kennedy campaign, and Sinatra's song, High Hopes, is used as the Kennedy's campaign song. Kennedy was so grateful for the Jack Pack, as the Rat Pack was temporarily known when Sinatra helped JFK get elected, that he assigned Sinatra and Lawford to produce his star-studded gala the night before the inauguration in 1961. Now, this was the time when miscegenation laws were still in force in 31 states, and it prevented Sammy Davis Jr. from performing with his Rat Pack compatriots at the gala because he was married to Mae Britt, a white woman. It also was exacerbated by the fact that Sammy Davis Jr. supported Richard Nixon. And guess who was the master of ceremonies at the JFK inaugural gala? None other than the 5th member of the Rat Pack, Joey Bishop. So in 1952, he was earning $1,000 a week at the Latin Quarter in Manhattan, a club owned by Barbara Walters' father. He caught the eye of Frank Sinatra, who asked him to open for him in a popular New Jersey club, which resulted in his inclusion to the Rat Pack. An ad-libber with a dry, underplayed sense of humor, on stage, Bishop was never at a loss for words. While opening for Sinatra at the Copacabana in New York in 1954, Joey was in the middle of his act when in walked Marilyn Monroe wearing a floor-length white ermine coat, and he waited for her to be seated before saying, "Marilyn, I told you to wait out in the truck." Bishop did only a little singing and dancing, and he did tell jokes and wrote most of the Rat Pack's material. Joey achieved his greatest fame in the 1960s when he was the most popular comedian in America. Bishop frequently substituted as a host for Jack Parr and later for Johnny Carson. In 1967, ABC signed him to host his own 90-minute late-night talk fest, The Joey Bishop Show, with Regis Philbin as Joey's announcer sidekick, and it ran for 2.5 years. Joey was a family man, and he and his wife Sylvia were married in 1941. Joey was referred to as the mouse in the Rat Pack. He remained married until Sylvia's death until 1999. Though each member of the Rat Pack contributed to the whole, together they became an unstoppable force and now viewed as the quintessential snapshot for an entire period. It was a perfect time that celebrated bravado, swagger, and a good stiff drink. And Palm Springs served as the perfect setting for all that mid-century glamour. So here's to the Rat Pack, and here's to Palm Springs. Cheers. We hope you'll be able to visit us soon and discover why Palm Springs has become the capital for mid-century modern architecture and design.
Kurt, that was amazing. Thank you for all of that history. I do have a question for you. We need the scoop. What is your favorite home to show during the tour and why?
Well, gosh, there's so many. Now, I offer two different types of tours. I do an interior tour and an exterior tour. Both are socially distanced. Probably the most iconic home that we can get close enough to is the Kaufman House, the Kaufman Desert House by Richard Neutra, 1947, which, by the way, just went on the market 3 weeks ago for $25 million. So if you guys have some pocket change, you too can own that house. It's also known as for the very famous Slim Aarons photograph, Poolside Gossip. That's really become quite an iconic photograph where the two ladies are sitting out by the pool. So Kaufman House is such a beautiful house, and it's so photogenic that even though we don't get to go inside, you can get some incredible photographs from the exterior.
Thank you so much, Kurt. That was amazing.
So I do just want to mention that I haven't been able to run my Martini and Mid-Century Modern Architecture tour because of COVID. So that's the one tour that's been on hold. But the other two tours are socially distanced, and we run the tours via cell phone. So you can either put me on speakerphone and follow, or run me through the Bluetooth in your car. We also go into various houses, and when we do that, we mask up and we socially distance while we're inside the house. And those the groups of those tours have been greatly reduced. So there's either 2 to 4 people usually, or sometimes it will, when a pod of travelers are traveling together like a family group, we'll be able to accommodate that.
Okay, wonderful. We did have a question come in.
Sure.
Can you do the Martini and Mid-Century Modern Architecture tour as a custom private tour?
Yes, all my tours are available privately, but as I said, currently we won't, because we go to Melvin's to have our Martini, and that was a hangout for Frank Sinatra. They are not open right now, so I'm not able to conduct the tour there. But I also do custom tours. We can do kind of a Rat Pack celebrity-centric tour, sans the Martini. But all my tours are available for custom tours as well, and private tours.
Thank you, and thank you, Shadi, for that question. Well, if there aren't any other questions, we're going to go on to our final panelist.
Oh, I just wanted to mention all my tours are available online at psmodsquad.com. So all of the availability is there. So psmodsquad.com. Thanks. Sorry about that.
Thanks, Kurt. Thanks, Michelle. Our next speaker, I'm excited to introduce retro pop culture humorist Charles Fenix is an award-winning performer and author celebrating classic and kitschy American life and style. He's known for his spirited life comedy slideshow performances, colorful coffee table books, classic car joyride videos, and fun field trip tours. His latest book is Holiday Jubilee, and the New York Times says, call him the King of Retro. So it is my pleasure to introduce the King of Retro, Mr. Charles Fenix.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. How much do we all seriously love Palm Springs and the Greater Palm Springs area? Where do we begin?
Well, thank you. We do. So, and we're so lucky to have you as an ambassador for our destination, in a sense. And I just want to start, Charles, by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us some background.
Well, I celebrate classic and kitschy American life and style. I'm a self-taught kind of style and design I'm a style and design addict. Addict? Sorry, like my brain just went haywire there for a second. An attic is something that's above you in the house. Anyway, no, addict, but in the best kind of way, and there is no cure. So yeah, I grew up in Southern California. I'm a child of shopping malls, my dad's used car lot, and Disneyland. And that kind of just formed my brain to see the world in a very interesting way, like it is a great big theme park. And Palm Springs and the Palm Springs area is like a great big theme park. And that's why I call it Palm Springs land. And you know, you said the word ambassador, and I feel like I am an ambassador of the Palm Springs and the Greater Palm Springs area. Because everywhere I travel in the world or in the United States, I always talk about Palm Springs. And, you know, every time you mention Palm Springs, like people's ears perk up. It's like it has this kind of magical quality about just the words Palm and Springs together. People are like, oh, Palm Springs? Either they've been there or they want to go there, they've heard about it. And I kind of tell them about it. And, you know, one of the things that I say is, I say, you know, you can do, when you go to Palm Springs, you can do 900 things or you can do nothing and you've done it just the same. And I also tell people that, you know, the built environment is amazing in Palm Springs, unique in all the world. It is the Mecca of mid-century. But first and foremost, the natural beauty of Palm Springs is really the crowning touch and the backdrop to it all. And it's so spectacular. But you asked me to tell you about myself. So yeah, that's basically what I do. I write books, I do live shows. I have collected other people's old Kodachrome slides since 1992. So most of my live performances, which is my bread and butter, well, was my bread and butter, is based on, my shows are based on my collection of other people's old Kodachrome slides. But over the years, over the past, how long have I been doing them? 22 years, I think. They've evolved into kind of talking about my travels and my discoveries. I'm very, very interested in furniture design and art and classic cars, all of the mid-century era, everything, all the culture. I've done several books. Addicted to Americana, Holiday Jubilee is my latest. And I'm a big, 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 big fan of Palm Springs. I've been involved in Modernism Week since virtually almost it began. Every year I do a big show at the Palm Springs Museum in the beautiful auditorium there, which is all like orange, you guys. How much do we all seriously love orange? I know. But anyway, I also do the bus tours. They have the double-decker bus tours, and I've been doing those. And that's where I really get to connect with the people who come to Palm Springs. And you know, it's interesting because when I greet everyone as they get on the double-decker bus, I say, where are you from? Where are you visiting from? And for the first few years, it was like, most people, you know, we're from Atlanta, we're from Taiwan, we're from England, we're from Auckland, New Zealand, we're from, you know, everywhere, Canada. People come from all over the world. Palm Springs is a world-class destination. And with all the trimmings that you have with Palm Springs, I mean, it's like, it's overwhelming how many things there are to see and do there and how there's something for everybody. The other thing that I want to point out, I know I'm a little all over the place because I'm just kind of that way, but you know, as a destination now, if someone wants to go on a vacation, Palm Springs is perfect for, I mean, I don't like to talk about it that much, but pandemic times, because, you know, the people don't realize that don't know Palm Springs. The resorts are what I call little resortettes. I mean, they're not these big giant resorts, mostly. Yes, we have those, but in Palm Springs, old classic, you know, mid-century modern Palm Springs, they're all small little resorts with 8 or 10 rooms. So you are socially distanced at all times. There aren't all kinds of people running through the lobby and crazy. It is so chill, so relaxed, and you can just kind of have your space. That's what there is in Palm Springs, space. I mean, that is one thing that it has for sure. I mean, and so much more. So anyway, I'm sorry, I'm just rambling. What were you saying?
Well, you're so right. The outdoors and the indoors connect. We said, you know, the outdoors is as much a space for you to utilize. We talk a lot about that with groups, you know. We can really think outside of the box, and our beautiful climate, we're so lucky. You touched a lot on mid-century modern and Modernism Week. How would you define mid-century modernism?
Well, at its core, I tell my bus groups, I mean, I feel like we're on the bus right now, the double-decker bus tour of Modernism during Modernism Week, which, by the way, is so wonderful. Modernism Week is my favorite time of the year. It's my favorite place to be. Palm Springs is my favorite place, and Modernism Week is my favorite time of the year. But you were saying, how do you define modernism, mid-century modernism? Well, basically, at its core, mid-century modernism is about simplicity. Form follows function. I mean, that is the core of mid-century design. So post and beam, and that is kind of the structural kind of vocabulary that it starts with right there. Minimalism, simplicity, new materials, new thinking, and Palm Springs is, well, as I said, it is the mecca of mid-century modernity, and people come from all over the world to discover what has been rediscovered about Palm Springs. I'll never forget, and Lisa touched on this in her talk in the beginning, I first went on a tour at Palm Springs Modernism Tour in 1997. There were two guys from LA that were very into art and design, and they got obsessed with Palm Springs and the kind of remains of the mid-century modern movement era of architecture that was built there in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and had, you know, kind of, okay, we might as well get it out in the open. It totally fell out of favor. It went out of vogue. And, you know, Palm Springs kind of did a lull, like in the 80s and early 90s. You know, people moved on, a lot of people moved on to Rancho Mirage, which is gorgeous. And you know, I think they call it Down Desert, I'm not sure. But anyway, because I usually concentrate on Palm Springs, but anyway. And so people come from all over the world to see this architecture now, because it came back into style. And these tours that started in the late 90s, it just snowballed. And pretty soon, there were people coming from New York and San Francisco, these sophisticates that knew about art and design and style, that were studied in that realm. And they're like, this is a treasure trove of amazing architecture. And it's a completely unique place. Palm Springs itself is unique. And then when you get the architecture on top of it, I mean, it's like a win-win situation. If you're not into architecture, you're probably going to wind up being into it. Not only that, it is a world-class destination for shopping and just leisure in general. The restaurants are amazing, full service. The people are lovely also. You run into so many creative and clever people, titans of industry, artists, bohemians. I mean, it's a really, that's the other thing that I tell people when I travel around the world and mention Palm Springs, a friendly crowd of people. It really, really is a lovely bunch of lovely people. And,
I agree.
You know, it's very, okay, sorry, what?
No, I was going to say I agree. The people are so welcoming, and I think it's something that sets our destination apart. And like you said, the architecture, it truly is a personality only we have. So, and you talk about it so beautifully. So thank you.
In all the world. Not only that, we've got, I mean, right at our back door, we've got Joshua Tree National Monument. We've got those mountains that are the backdrop of Palm Springs that you can hike up to. If you want to go up the aerial tramway, you can do that too and look out over the entire Coachella Valley. If you want to have a date shake, that's our local food. Everybody has local foods. Everywhere you go in the world, there's a local food, hopefully. Palm Springs and the Coachella Valley, the local food is the date shake. So you haven't done the Coachella Valley or Palm Springs, Greater Palm Springs, until you've had the date shake.
Yes, absolutely. Do you have any new projects on the horizon?
I do. I have my first ever, so I told you that I make my living doing live performances in theaters around the United States and other parts of the world, unfortunately because of you know what. So now I'm going online. My first ever online holiday show, or show period, is this November 28th. It's live on YouTube. You can get tickets at charlesfenix.com. It's Holiday Jubilee. This is my new book, Holiday Jubilee.
Love.
The show is based on that. So you can get tickets for the live streaming, live on YouTube show, November 28th, Holiday Jubilee.
Oh, that's so exciting. I can't wait to see it in person. And we just are so thrilled to have you here with us today. Thank you again for your being an ambassador. And I'm going to pass it back over to Michelle to follow up with some additional questions for you.
All righty.
All right. Thanks, Charles.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angie, and thank you, Charles. So we did have a question about your books. Where do we get your books?
Holiday Jubilee is the latest one. There's also Addicted to Americana. I've written about 9 books, I guess. Writing a book, you guys, is so much work. We might as well get it out in the open. It takes me an hour to write a sentence. Something is wrong with me, but you know, it's like, I feel like I need to write these books because there are books that I want to see on the shelves that aren't there, so I'm doing it. Holiday Jubilee celebrates all the holidays. It's the pop culture mid-century traditions and all that and more, and there's original recipes. Was that the answer to the question?
And where can we buy them?
Well, charlesphoenix.com is the best place as far as I'm concerned. They do arrive. I sign them. I go to the publisher's office and I sit and sign. Yesterday I signed about 250 books. That took 1 hour and 15 minutes. And as I went, my penmanship even improved, which was pretty good already.
Wonderful, thank you. The big question these days from our meeting planner friends is, are you available for virtual conferences?
Yes, yes. I mean, how much do we love embracing all this new technology? I mean, it's interesting and it's challenging and it's inspiring to learn new things. So yes, 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 I am. And I have a whole show all about Palm Springs, in case you want to talk about Palm Springs, or the Greater Coachella Valley.
That's
also,
wonderful.
Well, never mind. Sorry, I'll calm down. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Charles. We appreciate your time. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, so thanks again, Charles and Michelle. Great questions. And before we say goodbye, I just want to tell you about a fun contest that we're having. If you take a photo of yourself dressed in your favorite mid-century mod outfit and email it to your Greater Palm Springs CVB contact, you'll be entered to win a fabulous mid-mod gift from Greater Palm Springs. We'll announce the winner at our next episode next month in December. So get your clothes on and get a photo taken and send it in. And then that's it, you guys. Thank you for joining us. Stay safe and be well. And we look forward to seeing you next month when we will feature some of our wonderful museums in Greater Palm Springs. And thanks again for all that you participated and to our speakers for being here today. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.